especially thank everybody for coming tonight. My name is Greg Lambert. I'm the director of the Humanities Center. To introduce Bob, I'd like to introduce Patricia Cox Miller, who is the W. Earl Ledden Professor of the Department of Religion at Syracuse University and serves as the representative from the Religion Department to the Humanities Center's Board of Advisors. She's pleased to be able to support the Humanities Center's inclusion of Bob Gates' photographic work in this year's Syracuse Symposium by introducing Bob himself, the artist, photographer, and some of the activists whose work she has long admired. Please welcome Patricia Cox Miller.
Many of you will know our speaker, Bob Gates, as a professor and former chair of the English department at Syracuse University. But tonight, we celebrate his artistry as a photographer. Bob studied photography formally in the course of earning a doctorate in medieval English literature at the University of Iowa. He led a successful career in the academy, but his love of photography never quite left him. And several years ago, he felt the call of the lens once again. Beginning in 2003, Bob's photographs have been widely featured in solo and group exhibitions and juried shows all over central New York, New England, and as far west as Washington State. His photographs have won grand prizes and first prizes in an impressive array of venues, and they have been published in such notable publications as F-Stop magazine, the Best of Photography annuals, the National Geographic Traveler, Photography magazine, to name only a few. The title of Bob's talk tonight, Last Transfer, Identity and Liminality, refers to his documentary photographic project begun in March of 2010, whose aim was to record the faces of the people who use the Centro bus transfer station in downtown Syracuse every day. This transfer station, located at the corner of Fayette and South Salina Streets, is a vibrant communal urban space that is about to disappear with the construction of a new transfer hub along Warren Street. Bob's photographs have, in effect, memorialized the bus stop community by inscribing it in images. On his website, these photographic images are collectively called Last Transfer, the Soul of Syracuse. There's something right about that. I have been following Bob's project on his website for some months now, and every time I see a new group of faces, I am mesmerized all over again. Recently, I was reading Italo Calvino's last book, and I ran across a quotation from the Austrian poet Hugo von Hofmannsthal that helped me articulate to myself the allure of these photographs. And so in closing, I offer it to you. Quote, "Depth is hidden. Where? On the surface," unquote. With great pleasure, Bob Gates.
The images that you saw on the screen as you were coming in are part of a long-term documentary project that I've been working on for the past year and a half, as Pat mentioned. An extended series of portraits of people who come to the bus stations at the corner of Fayette and Salina, which is going to disappear. There's one fact about my personal history that Pat didn't know or find out that provides a background or context for this work. I grew up in a housing project in Newark, New Jersey, where most of the 300 families who lived there were second and third generation immigrants. I could not have completed this project without that very important foundation. The other background is my interest in photography, which began, as Pat mentioned, when I was a graduate student at the University of Iowa over 40 years ago. I already had children at the time and was taking pictures, and the neighbor said, "You should have a 35mm camera." And I said, "What's a 35mm camera?" And so he encouraged me to get one, and I became interested. And I took a course in photography, a 1-year course in black and white film, developing, printing, the whole darkened thing, and fell in love with it. This is while I was writing my dissertation in medieval literature. I said, I really want to be maybe let's see. So I did the smart thing, and I came here, had a very happy, satisfying career as a professor of English. And then 9 years ago, my daughter was pregnant in California, and I said, gee, I should get her one of those cute little digital cameras to take pictures of the baby. So I went out and bought one, and I said, I kind of like this. And so I sent that off to her, and then went out and bought one for myself. And just fell back in love with photography again. And just continued from that point on. Here's a photograph that I took over 40 years ago, which, except for its background, would not be out of place in my current exhibition. On my return to photography, I worked a lot in abstract compositional forms, mostly in color images, with an emphasis on abstraction and formal composition. Some of my photographs were also in black and white, related to my earlier film background, and again, with a strong emphasis on objects, pattern, and formal composition. But I also enjoyed street photography, a genre of photography that has a long and powerful history from Henri Cartier-Bresson through Gary Winogrand, Lee Friedlander, and Bruce Davidson, to the only recently discovered works of Vivian Maier, a woman who worked as a nanny and took hundreds of thousands of photos in the streets of Chicago, and who died in 2009, and whose work is now seeing the light of day after having been discovered in a storage locker. Most of my street photographs are in the traditional street photography style, where the subjects are unaware or taken off guard. There are odd or unusual juxtapositions of people and things, sometimes an ambiguous or surreal sense of relationships, and the result is often humorous or ironic comment on how people inhabit their most emergent environment. Then one day in March of 2010, as I was shooting downtown, I walked past bus stops. I recalled a recent newspaper article about the new bus transfer station, and I wondered what was going to happen once the buses moved. And I decided to create a visual record of the people who inhabit this unique cultural space before it disappears. The image on the screen is the first shot I took on March 13th, 2010. I've been going down there 2 or 3 times a week ever since. I was down there this morning. From the very beginning, I decided to abandon the more discreet and anonymous style of street photography and engage people directly by asking them if they would allow me to take their picture. The result was a great loss of distance and irony and objectivity, but a great gain in immediacy or intimacy. I consider these photographs to be the result of a complex collaboration between photographer and subject. But the fact that people agree to be photographed does not avoid the question of exploitation, which always arises when you take photos of people in public. Is the photographer using or objectifying people? Is he or she aestheticizing their misery? Is he or she romanticizing their deprivations? I'm not sure I've always avoided these dangers, but I have always been aware of it. The most challenging situations I face are when I know someone looks poor, dirty, strung out, or mentally unstable. I don't seek such people out as colorful characters, nor do I avoid shooting them. What I mostly do is try not to objectify them or make them an object of pity or condescension. And I try to accord everyone the same level of dignity and respect, and to trust that something of their genuine humanity will emerge. Let me give you one example of facing this problem. Here is an image of a man I photographed a number of times last year, often at his request. It was often high or messed up in some way. And I would normally never show this image to an audience or put it in an exhibit. But then last week I met him downtown and was happy to find that he is now clean and sober and he has a job. I congratulated him on his transformation, and we joked about having before and after photos to show as part of my project. And he posed for this show. The funny thing is, I probably wouldn't show this picture either. It's just not interesting enough for me. So here's a third shot, taken last year. And even though this was taken during the time when he was messed up, I don't think it reveals or highlights that fact. And I just really like it. There's something soulful about it. And it is an image I would include in an exhibit. So the bottom line is, it's always a judgment call. Having talked with many people about the transfer station over the past year and a half, I can confirm my initial impression that that corner has a stereotyped reputation as being dirty or dangerous. And because of that, I was at first somewhat nervous and intimidated. But I've been overwhelmed by how friendly and receptive most people are, and how eager many of them are to be part of the project. I talked with them about the new transfer station, and how this corner will change, and what this space means to them. You may know what the official name for that space is. If you read it in the newspaper, it's called the Common Center. I have never heard anybody down there call it the Common Center. They call it the bus stops, Fayette, Salina, or frequently the Four Corners. I'm going down to the Four Corners. Meet me down at the Four Corners. The ironic thing is, it is the Common Center. Sharing the images with my subjects has been a very gratifying part of the project. I always bring copies of a small note like this on the screen, with the description of the project and my contact information. If people say they have email, I give them this piece of paper and offer to send them the images. And then sometimes note ends up, skip one, note ends up showing up in the image. It's a little hard to see sometimes. It's there. For those people who don't have access to email, if there are people I see frequently downtown, I will bring them 4x6 prints. Or if I think they would particularly like to have a copy of the image, I mail them prints. And again, those prints sometimes show up in a shot taken on a subsequent visit. I love the doubleness of that. One of the street people, who was there all the time and would ask me to take his photo, said, when I gave him this print, "Oh, thanks. So that's what I look like." A woman whose daughter lives down south and whom she hadn't seen in many years wanted a photo to send to her. Another man, whom I had taken photos of a few times, said, "Hey, I got a new hat. You like my hat?" I said, "Yeah, I like your hat." He said, "Would you take a picture of me with my new hat? I want to send it to my son. He's in prison." I said, "Certainly, I'll take a picture of your new hat." And I gave it to him to send to his son in prison. Quite a few people also used the photos I have sent them on their Facebook pages. Erase them. There's always a subtle negotiation or dance involved in getting people to allow me to photograph them. I was uneasy at first, but soon I learned that even the fiercest looking people could be quite receptive. And now I tend to first approach the most forbidding looking subjects. The first man here told me he kept up his tough exterior so no one messed with him, then wanted to pay me for the prints I sent him. He also told me that young people these days have no respect, and that if anyone messed with me, they let him know. This man wanted some images to try to enter a bodybuilding competition. And this man has a very stern demeanor and rebuffed me the first time I asked if I could take his picture. And then one day he saw me handing out some photos to somebody else. And he came over and he said, what are you doing there? And after that, we take his picture. And he turns out to be a sweetheart. I'm also fascinated by the tension I feel in my encounters with some of my subjects between, on the one hand, a kind of openness or intimacy of expression as people look with a kind of naive and trusting gaze into my lens. And sweetness. At the other extreme, there's the inevitable guardedness or suspicion that people assume in a public space when someone they don't know points a camera at them. Some people at first even thought I might be taking photos for the police. As you look at these images, remember, they have all agreed to let me take their picture. In some of the images, there seems to be a conflict or shifting between these opposite states of trusting versus suspicion, or a conflict played out on the person's face as they try to figure out what kind of relationship they want to have with me and my camera, or who they want to be in that moment, which of their many possible social identities they want to put on for me. The suspicion moderated after a while as I inevitably became part of the community of the Four Corners. And people now seek me out for another photo or encourage their friends to have their pictures taken by the picture man. To give some idea of what my working style is, I'll show you a few photos that my friend and fellow photographer, Jean Ann Wieners, who's here tonight, took as she practiced her own version of street photography while I was at work downtown. This first one is a pretty typical situation with people looking on, and here is the resulting image. This photo shows the distance I normally work at, and here is the resulting image. And then Jean Ann's shot of me showing him the photo and a handshake. Many people say yes right away when I ask them. Others seem a little suspicious or ask me why or whatever. This woman was a little uncertain, as you can tell. Then I turned on the charm and showed her some pictures I'd taken of other people, and told her what I was doing, and she said, sure. And I got this beautiful shot. And satisfied customer. Having given a little background about myself, what I've been doing, I want to turn to the theme of identity and offer a few thoughts about two very different or perhaps contradictory aspects of identity that suggested themselves to me as I worked on this project. And these are just thoughts. I'm still working on them, still thinking about these topics and these ideas. Diversity is, of course, a cultural buzzword today. And I'm embarrassed to say that when I first started shooting downtown, I was surprised to find how diverse the population of that corner is. Given that many people are there to take the bus, there's of course some skewing toward the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. And of course I expected and found the kind of ethnic diversity typical of any inner city, and which will be obvious in the photos. But I had pictures of lawyers, at least three, Bob Smith, Ed Mencken, and Mike O'Connor. Lawyers, nurses, businessmen, students, hairdressers, artists, and psychologists, as well as homeless people, ex-convicts, and addicts. But there are many other kinds of diversity represented in this project as well. I encountered recent immigrants from many different countries, including this man who didn't speak English, but was able to tell me very proudly that he's from Bhutan. There are, of course, many old people, even after the city closed the Ida Benderson Senior Center a half block away. But I was not prepared for the number of children and even babies that I encountered. This baby is 9 days old. Her name is Nasirina. American is spelled backwards. And this baby, I think, is 2 weeks old when I took the picture. Since the buses are wheelchair accessible, there are plenty of people in wheelchairs. A couple of wheelchairs. And I even have a photo of a woman in her wheelchair, and then a few months later inviting me to celebrate the fact that she's no longer in a wheelchair. I particularly enjoy seeing the many different kinds of couples and wondering about the nature of their relationship, and in some cases wondering, sometimes wondering whether they're both okay about having their pictures taken. I have both heterosexual and homosexual couples. And I have lots of pictures of families, from small. This is Nasirina, the little girl, who is the 9-day-old picture of her parents. To large families. I have no idea what they were doing down there with their Dunkin' Donuts box. The only one who's speaking is with a little boy in the front who's holding my little slip of paper, and he didn't speak it really well, so I don't know what they're doing, but they're all the bus stop. Of course, you can't always tell whether people who are standing or sitting together really are related or a couple. And when 2 or 3 people are sharing a bench or standing close, I often wonder whether they're together or not, or what their relationship might be. Among the diversity and variety of people at the bus stop, I met a man who honored me with a blessing. Whoops, going backwards here, sorry. Not one, but 2 different men going fishing. I have no idea where. And a man who obviously needed me to take a picture of his wound. I met lots of smokers. And lots of toothpicks. And especially lots of people who delighted in giving me attitude. I took a number of photos of some people who are there regularly and who really like to be photographed. And this morning I went down thinking, it'd be nice to have a photo from today to have in the show. So, who did I see this morning? Of course, it makes sense, it's appropriate. One important aspect of identity is clothing, and the diversity of attire is truly wonderful, and you can get a good idea of that from many of the images. But I also enjoyed trying to decide who would take the title of Best Dressed at the Four Corners. Among the men, it has to be Mark. And among the women, there's no contest. It has to be Mark. I have never seen her in the same thing twice, and she always looks stunning. So I was delighted a few weeks ago to get a shot of Mark and Monica. And finally, just when I had seen all the different possibilities of variety and diversity down there, I went down there this morning and I found a juggler. This environment, this intersection, is the most diverse environment I've ever encountered since I left the projects. And I increasingly felt it was both an honor and a responsibility to bear witness to that diversity. However, I also experienced the paradox of diversity. When the human social environment is genuinely diverse in a natural and unforced way, the notion or feeling of diversity vanishes. People are no longer different. I never experienced the housing project I grew up in as diverse, and I no longer experience the Four Corners as diverse. It is just where we all hang out and do our thing, whether that is waiting for the bus, selling cigarettes, meeting friends, or taking pictures. This feeling of difference, after seeing the images online, someone emailed me this message. Quote, I've walked past that corner and seen the people waiting for the buses many times, but I kept right on walking because they seemed so different from me. I didn't really see them until your photos. The same person also said, many of your photos convey humanity and personality that go well beyond the standard smile for the camera. End quote. This reference to smile for the camera brings me to my second thought about identity, the notion of liminality. Earlier, I said that I made a shift from a more anonymous street shooting style to asking people permission to photograph. In retrospect, I think this change had something to do with the influence of two of my photographic idols from the first half of the 20th century. One of them is the German photographer August Sander. The other is the roughly contemporaneous American photographer born Mike Myers, who rechristened himself Disfarmer because he didn't want to be farmer. He was a small-town portrait photographer, unlike Sander, who's a much more large-scale presence. Although they're different in many ways, what always struck me about the work of both of these great photographers is the almost complete absence in their subjects of our modern tendency to smile and say cheese when a camera is pointed at us. This is also true of the amazing photographs currently on display at Lakewood. The tin types by Kelly Anderson Staley in her exhibition, Hyphen Americans. Kelly gave me permission to show two of her images in my talk, but you certainly should go to Lakewood if you haven't seen this exhibit. They're truly amazing. Jeff Hoon, in his gallery description for that exhibit, says, quote, when we look at tintypes made during their era of invention from the late 19th century, we see the same rigid, stoic, and serious postures and expressions repeated in Kelly Anderson Staley's tintype portraits from our current time. Tintypes require long exposure times between 15 and 60 seconds. So the stern gaze of our ancestors didn't describe the quality of their life or the temperament of their character, but were simply the outcome of trying to stay still. While I'm sure there's some truth to this, Sander and Disfarmer were working with equipment that didn't require so long exposures, and yet their subjects often have similar expressions. Expressions that convey the impression of a dignity of character and heroic stature that, in my humble opinion, many contemporary photographs lack. A number of my subjects presented themselves to me with a visage similar to the, quote, stern gaze that Jeff notes in the tintypes. As I saw more and more of these powerful and beautiful, non-smiling, non-grinning faces, I wondered what it was about these people or this situation or my approach that contributed to this remarkable effect. I think maybe it has something to do with what social scientists call liminality. In the age of Facebook, we've learned to accept the fluidity of identity. This is Peter Steiner's famous cartoon in which one dog says to another, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. And this is often taken to represent a new truth but really represents a very old truth. Identities have always been constructed, fluid, changeable, and difficult to read. This truth became very real to me as I got further into this project. Much documentary photography, going back to Robert Frank's seminal work, The Americans, And this was certainly true of August Sanders' project, which was called The Face of Our Time, and was part of a volume of a projected series called People of the 20th Century. Much documentary photography tends to identify people by putting them in a particular social context. And even though my photographs are taken in a very specific social context, something about that context also seemed to disidentify them. A number of my subjects look serious or stoical or proud or curious or unsmiling, and I tried to show you some of those a minute ago. But others seem almost to have no expression, as if they were waiting for something. Waiting for the bus, waiting for me to take their picture, but also waiting for us to fill in the blanks of their identity. So it occurred to me that perhaps the transfer station facilitates a disidentifying process, because it is a classic example of a liminal space, an in-between space, a place of transition and crossing where no one belongs because everyone belongs, and everyone's identity is in question or up for grabs. As many of you know, and I'll explain it in case you don't, the term liminality was coined by anthropologist Arnold van Gennep and later developed by Victor Turner. And it refers to individuals who inhabit a special in-between place in society. Originally, they used this to talk about people who are going through a transition from maybe childhood to adulthood, initiation rites, they go out into the bush, they lose their identity as a child, they have to come back and assume a new identity. So they have to go through a period of time where they have no social identity. They have to get rid of one identity before another one can be given to them or whatever, something like that. It's also been used to talk about people immigrating, middle passage from one place to another, and so forth. Turner says that the attributes of liminality are necessarily ambiguous, since this condition, I'm quoting, since this condition in these persons elude or slip through the network of classifications that normally locate states and positions in cultural space. Liminal entities are neither here nor there. They are betwixt and between the positions assigned and arrayed by law, custom, convention, and ceremony, end quote. Further explained by Charles LeSure, in addition, the group of liminal individuals is not a typical social hierarchy, but a communal group in which all are equal. It's these two terms, ambiguity from Turner and equality from LeSure, that gave me some thoughts about what I was seeing in these photos. I think the ambiguity of my subject's identity may arise from various kinds of uncertainty. Uncertainty about who they are at that particular place, which is not their home turf, they're not among their usual peer groups. Uncertainty about their place in life, their job, their home, their future. Uncertainty about who they think they should be for me as I point my camera at them. As for equality, they're all equal. Not only because they're all here at this one central place, participating in the four corners, nor because they have all agreed to participate in the group self-portrait, but also because many of them, whether they are conscious of it or not, have agreed to be themselves, whatever that is in that precise moment for my camera. This equality, the sense that they are all alike in making themselves accessible, in showing themselves to me with far less identity or persona than they normally would, could also be called their no-self, or what in Buddhism is called your original face, or your Buddha nature. And it is this no-self, this common and recognizable human identity, which is for me the most powerful aspect of these portraits. I want to end with a slideshow showing a selection of photos, and then I'll take some questions. These are images I would have added to the print exhibition if I had 3 times the space. The words and music accompanying these images are by Kafui Atto. The poem, song, and accompanying commentary are in press for publication in ACME and International e-Journal for Critical Geography. The sound, the poem, and the music you're hearing is from Kafui Atto.
Downtown Syracuse on Salina and Fayette, people are waiting for bus route 28, route 54, route 3, route 122 Strathmore. Downtown Syracuse on Salina and Fayette, 10 past 6 p.m. and the bus has not come yet. The intersection is packed with people with a penchant for cigarettes and spending their pensions on lottery tickets. They rest their eyes on the street and wait. I spit phlegm on a rusty grate splat and I watch the stoplight change from green to yellow to red. Waiting for bus route 33, route 45, route 21, Shopping Town via East Genesee. Grandma is wearing a funny, ill-fitting green dress. Her bright red lipstick is a mess smeared on her cheeks. She stumbles and stares, eyes curling. I hold my burning head in my hands, and I'll be damned if I give her money. I cross the street. A man with a cross and a placard attached to his chest greets the hot air with scripture. He is screaming Jesus Christ and waiting for Route 167, Route 143, Route 78, Solvay Express. Everybody is waiting. Kids with gigantic book bags, kids with dime bags, kids who stare me down, kids who push infants in strollers, old men who push walkers, women who push religion, girls with push-up bras and pumps. She is 15, pushing 25, talkers, beggars, sinners, high rollers, liars, waiting for bus route 2, route 67, route 43, Carousel Mall. Nurses in rose-colored robes shuffle across Salina Street. A flock of linen. Hey, Bobby, long time. Hey, Richard, when was the last? Hey, Martha, how much time has passed? Kisses, hugs, and handshakes. Slow salutes, lean mugs, heartbreak. This is the crux of a city on crutches, and I'm waiting for bus route 5, route 7, route 54, SU Drumlins. And to the south, I see a phalanx of abandoned storefronts. The whole block reminds me of my grandmother's toothless grin. To the north, route 690 cuts the blue sky in two, a vertebrae of cement and steel and iron and asphalt. To the west stand rows of industrial mausoleums haunted by the specter of prosperity. To the east, a gleaming group of buildings in a white dome inflated with hope. No joke. But down here in the heart of it all, people are waiting for bus route 90, route 67, route 45, Camillus. I buy a panhandler a hot dog with onions and chili and cheese. I buy him a cool drink with a straw. I just bought my way into heaven on an express bus, yes. I get myself a cup of coffee and a place to watch the spectacle unfold. I bought a voyeur's pass at the information booth with a 2-week unlimited ride option, and I'm copping a good seat, waiting for bus route 76. Route 22, Route 4, Liverpool. They meet at the intersection of urban decay and the Carnivalesque. It is a walkable street, but people are standing in place. Black folks on the corner, poor people and their problems, out in the open like an exposed wound. The upper echelon wants them hidden and gone, buried under the rug. I shrug and sip my coffee, waiting for bus route 67, route 43, route 25, OCC and South Ave. Former industrial workers, former foremen of shiny factories, former Marines in tattered jeans, former sons, former daughters smile and joke, smoke heavily and look forward to tomorrow. Bus route 43, route 26, route 32, Western Lights. The manager of Rite Aid must not remember. He must not remember the time when he called the police and confiscated my card. He must not remember my red hat, my red eyes, and my disbelief. I must just blend in with the heathen masses that claw at his door for beer, lottery tickets, and potato chips, with the criminals who bum rush his store and steal paperback bestsellers and Hallmark cards. Bus route 321, route 45, route 1, Lemoyne, waiting. Where the hell am I? I turn to the south and see 7 bus drivers brandishing the 7th seal, disembarking 7 horse-drawn buses. They are followed by bus riders flagellating themselves. The MacArthur Building cement foundation melts and Salina Street starts boiling. I'm trapped in a painting by Hieronymus Bosch. I want to grab a cross, anoint myself with holy water, but I can only find cheap beer. I guess that will do. The sky turns from blue to bright red. What are we waiting for? Revelations or destiny? Route 666, Route 25, Route 32, Route 190, Bus Route 452, Route 980, Route 3, Route 45, Route 37. Everybody is searching for their routes. The buses are here and everybody is searching for their routes. Down on Salina, everybody is searching for their routes. Down on Fayette, everybody is searching for their routes. Down on East Genesee, everybody is searching for their routes. The buses are here and everybody is searching for their routes. I have a clipboard keyboard, a camera, a digital voice recorder, a pen, a pad, and no idea where I am.
Thank you, sir, so much, Bob, for this deeply moving and profound experience. My question is, did any of the four corner people take your picture? Or did ask for your camera to take your picture? Because you became one of them.
Yeah, nobody used my camera to take my picture. Two people took my picture. One, I gave my email, I said, send me that, and I never heard from them. And then somebody else took my picture one time. I do have a couple of pictures of me down there, not from those people. I have the one that was in the New Times that Mike Davis took, and then the one that's in the DO today that the DO photographer Stacy took. And then I took her picture, the one really late in the slideshow, the guy with the bow tie. That's actually it's four lawyers. We have lots of lawyers too. So I have a picture of her taking my picture, but I don't have anybody except for Jean Ann's terrific pictures of me. None of the people down there took my picture, but I have a copy. Steve,
what was your how did you take the pictures? What I'm thinking of is like, was it an ad hoc decision when you would go downtown? Did you go down a particular time every day? Did you go down every day?
Right. It was pretty random.
Only when at daylight, is that correct?
Oh yeah. There's no night shots.
Okay.
It was pretty random. Whenever I had time, I did after a while start to vary it so I'd go at different times in order not to get always exactly the same people. Although, believe me, I go at exactly the same time and there are always different people. So that ended up not being a particular. So it was pretty random. Whenever I had time, I'd go down just for about an hour, maybe a little more than an hour. 2 times, sometimes 3 times a week. Sarah?
Were they all shot with just natural light? And also, when you would be shooting someone, did you take multiple exposures at the same time?
First of all, natural light. I tried for a while to use flash, and they were terrible. So I really learned to make use of the light that was there. It's a great light. I mean, if you're a photographer, you know that diffuse light is what you want, right? So a bus shelter that gives you diffuse light bouncing up off the sidewalk, illuminating your faces is perfect. In the beginning, I had some shots I really wasn't happy with because there were too much bright sunlight and too much contrast. And I learned to work around that and so forth. So no, they're all natural light. I think the couple of experiments with flash didn't even make it in. I think I just threw them away. I forget. There might be 1 or 2 in there, but I doubt it. And the other part was...
did you take multiple exposures at the same time?
Usually, I would take a shot and look at it and then adjust the exposure and so forth. I never took safety multiple exposures together. Because for one thing, I didn't have time. I mean, I want to get the shot, And when someone says yes, that camera clicked. I wanted that initial fresh shot, and often the first one is the right one. I then will take more, and I'll say, oh, see you were blinking, let me take a few more, or turn this way so I get a little better light and so forth. But I really wanted that initial shot. And no, I didn't bracket my exposure, although I would change my exposure depending on the light situation.
Bob, in terms of identity, do the folks who go there identify that area as for social interaction, or are they just there to catch the bus?
Of course it would vary, right? Some people are just walking past, and I happen to grab it. Some people are just taking the bus. A fair number of people, that's where they hang out. That's their living room, I mean, a fair number. What do I mean? 50, 100, I don't know. But, not just a couple. Marianne.
How did you, when you approach people, how did you make them feel so comfortable? Because the pictures, I always find that the hardest to make people feel comfortable so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they look natural.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I put on my sweet face.
I mean, you
You're
have
not teaching.
a particular way of, you know, that you
Yeah,
approach
yeah.
people.
I can give you a whole, I can write a book about this, right? First of all, you don't surprise people. You stand where they can see you first, and they see you standing. So if you're going to take a picture of somebody, you don't come up and go like that. You kind of you walk around so they see you, right? And then you sort of turn, gently, and you come up. And I stand very close, closer than they may seem to feel comfortable with. I just ask them, I speak slowly. Good afternoon, sir. And I wait, because I want them to say something. And once they've said, hi, even if it's, hi, how you doing? Then an interaction has happened, an engagement has happened, and then I'll continue. I don't immediately start talking. I say, good afternoon, and wait for them to do the socially appropriate thing of saying, good afternoon, or how you doing? If they don't, I know I'm already in trouble. But if they do, I've established a relationship, even as small as that. And it goes, I could say more about that, but, just working with people, being polite, being respectful, talking very slowly, not because I think they're stupid or anything, but so that I'm not threatening, so that I'm very gentle in what I'm saying to them, and so they can get it. And I keep the camera out of the way, all kinds of things. Susan. Let me repeat that sort of way here. So what Susan's saying is, she takes the bus, and so the preconception of somebody who doesn't take the bus might be that it's hard to talk to people, but in fact, people taking the bus talk to each other all the time, and it's a part of the culture of taking the bus to be friendly and talk to each other.
That makes sense of the social distance that does have a lot to do with class, and thus with our environment here. It's a different code of social distance.
Yes. And that goes back to my saying that an important part of my background is having grown up in housing project in Newark, New Jersey.
Right.
All of that came back to me. Yeah, so if some of you didn't hear that, so Susan's asking about my use of the background, my conscious or unconscious, what I was doing, how I was using it, decisions I was making, and so forth. And I will say, first of all, that the lenses I'm using tend to defocus the background. So I want it to be there, but I don't want you to be able to focus on it and see it in sharp focus. And yet I want it to be the identifying context. So I'm really happy when I get a bus in the background, And then those murals on the corner of what is called the Pike Block, which are no longer there. I mean, well, they're still there, but they're redoing that building. So no one will take a picture of somebody in front of those murals ever again. So some of those I used, the kid sitting with the bicycle with the phantom character behind him where his black hoodie looks a little bit like. So clearly there are cases where I was aware of that and using that. And then sometimes I would move around so I'd get the background in or out of the shot. So yeah, I'm always being, at least, maybe not the first month I was doing it, but after that, I was really always conscious of where the background was and where I could get a shot and where the light was falling in the background and those sorts of things. Yeah.
What about the last shot where the bus says connect to a better future?
I was just looking for something that was non-people to say end, because I didn't want to say end on a person.
It wasn't ironic.
It wasn't ironic.
Okay.
I would say it was unconsciously ironic. Kristen, take the mic.
Okay, my question is actually related to Susan's. I'm interested in your moving from taking abstracts to taking portraits.
Yeah.
And
With street photography in the middle.
yes. So I'd like you to talk about the composing differences between those. I mean, when you're setting up the abstract shot versus setting up the portrait, how is that different? What changes?
My first thought is I'm an opportunist, okay, which is that I'm just looking for whatever I can see. And so that period of time doing abstracts is, it's like that's what I'm zoning on. That's what I'm, it's like I could be walking somewhere and other people, my wife could be saying something to me, and I'm like, where's that pattern, and so, it's sort of the same thing, but then it becomes, where's that next face? Where's that person with character? Where's that person with soul? Where's that person? So in that sense, it's similar, and then the aesthetic is just totally different. The abstract pattern versus the, but I think my way of going about it is very similar.
Did you have a favorite subject of some of those folks that you shot over and over?
I will. This is like, do you have a favorite child? Well, let's see. I'll tell you my favorite photo. You'll see it in the Shine. It's the old couple. I have one version of them here when they talked about old and young, and there's another version of it. You haven't even seen my favorites yet because they're over. I mean, if you've been on, you've seen them. But yes, there's just this couple, Leon and Dorothy, who are just my all-time favorites.
There's a part in Rick Burns' documentary about New York City where they touch on another street photographer, Helen Levitt, from the 40s, and who not only took photos but shot film of street life. And one of the talking heads says this wonderful phrase, "She saw the beauty of the street." And it's sort of a phrase I can't get out of my mind.
That's great.
And I get the sense from you that at the beginning of this project, you've kind of gone on a journey, in the process of discovery. I guess what I'm asking is that an adjective you use? Do you find the subject matter? Would you say that's beautiful? In an
Absolutely,
aesthetic? Yeah.
absolutely, no question about it. I remember I was probably shooting for about a month, and I emailed my friend Arthur. And I said, Arthur, I can say this to you. I wouldn't say it to many people, but now I understand that phrase from the '60s: "Black is beautiful." Because I'm seeing all these beautiful black faces, I was kind of embarrassed saying it. Like, well, of course, everybody's beautiful, but I was actually getting the literal experience of it. So yeah, absolutely, beauty is crucial. Yeah. You want to take the mic?
First of all, congratulations on a wonderful project.
Thank you.
Second of all, I'm a beginner photojournalist, and I'm always struggling to keep all the information I gather from my subjects organized and stuff. So I'm wondering what exactly, if you did gather any information, what did you ask for, and then how did you keep track of all that?
The simple answer is nothing. Most of these people, I don't know their names. That would have gotten in the way in many cases. I've come to learn the names of a certain number of people. If they email me, I know it, or if I send them the prints or something like that. But basically, I don't. I do have a little notebook where I keep record of. I took these people and this person again, and I took them on this date and so forth. And I've got a really good. I use Adobe Lightroom, which is great at database cataloging photographs. So I've got some kind of information. But the simple answer to your question is, I wasn't interested in information for the most part. Rosalind, take the mic, Rosalind.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with being amongst the people that you did not know, wanted to remain anonymous, but yet contact them so beautifully as you did?
Long time. I never can tell you that months into this project, I would go down there and it just took me 5 or 10 minutes before I could even approach anybody, even somebody who didn't look threatening and looked very, very, not threatening. So I was uneasy and nervous, and I don't think it had to do with being afraid at all. I think it just had to do with my own sense of the difficulty of approaching a stranger that somebody asked a question about earlier. It's just ingrained. It's not easy to go and ask somebody to take the picture. So it took me quite a while to really get comfortable doing that. And I will tell you that still there's a little nervousness when I go down there. It's certainly alleviated when I go down there and people say, "Hi, how you doing? And can I have another picture?" But even so, I'll go from this corner to that corner, and there won't be anybody I know, and I'll have to go up to a stranger and ask them if I can take their picture. So there's still a little bit of that, and I think it's a good thing. I don't want to ever lose that little nervousness, that little edge to it. John.
I'm wondering about maybe some ambiguity in the use of the word blast, the last transfer.
Yeah.
Because it is phasing out.
Yeah.
There will be a new transfer.
There will, yeah.
And after it's gone, Fayette and Salina will still be there.
Yeah.
There will still be 4 corners,
yeah.
but they'll be different.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to keep shooting at the Four Corners, but also go to the new transfer?
You know, a lot of people down there have asked me that, and the answer is I don't have any plans for that. I'm just sadly awaiting the day next February, probably, when that's going to change. So no, I don't know what. I have no idea what. I'm just really happy doing what I am. But I understand, absolutely.
Because you know, if you're exploring the soul, or souls, I would argue, of Syracuse,
Yeah.
that would be really intriguing to do. Because you know, before the buses, there were streetcars, and I'd hazard a guess that there was a central exchange point for the streetcar system. I don't know where the heck it is, but it would be interesting to go and see where it is now and take some. You could build some really fascinating stories about.
I could actually become a social scientist instead of a photographer if I wanted to. Right?
I'm glad you said that. No,
Yes.
You spoke about the disappearance of irony and the intimacy that you developed over a period of time. And I was struck when I saw the photos in the Panache Lounge that you titled them, and that some of them have even either Gucci brand or just necklace.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you didn't look for information and you didn't want to use the names.
Right.
But I would like to hear a little bit about your thoughts about the use of titles.
Use of titles, yeah. I debated about whether to even do that. You know, the other possibility is, you know, transfer 1, transfer 2, transfer 3, transfer 4. I had sent a lot of photos out to various places to get published and so forth. In most cases, they want titles. So I'd started thinking about title for some of them. And some of them were throwaway titles. You know, the kid's Gucci, he's got a Gucci thing on it, and that's it. So I didn't go for depth, or I just wanted something simple and identifying about it. I wanted the title not to get in the way of the photograph. I wanted to have a title. You know, there are other photographs I've done where the title is really important. Okay, my title master is Magritte. Okay, so a lot of my other photographs have got silly Magritte titles. These I try to be pretty just straightforward and unobtrusive, I guess would be the way to put it, in the titles.
So
and there are two people whose names are in the titles.
But irony is not an intention.
I didn't want irony in the titles. If there's irony in the picture, that's fine, but I didn't want any, you know, juxtaposition or playing around with it. I didn't want the titles to distract in any way from the photographs. I wonder if we just take 1 or 2 more and then go have something to drink, right? Okay. And we got a lot of hands up here. Okay, let's go here. Short questions. We'll take the 3 people I see. Yes.
You mentioned the kind of stoic expressions on some of their faces. Did you instruct them to do that?
I never told anybody how to behave and how to look or how to, absolutely. And the times when I was going to take a picture of person A and person B said, smile, I cringed, but I didn't say anything. So, okay, I'll take a picture of your smile, you know? So, no, that's just the way it turned out. Okay, so, yeah.
I was wondering if you noticed a difference in the identity that came out through the pictures and the identity that came out through your discussions with people, and whether or not that had a difference between those two had anything to do with you coming to the idea of this liminality, this sort of selflessness that came out.
Well, I think in a way, I mean, it's almost cliche to say this, you know, you can't tell a book by its cover, you know, we've got sayings for that, is that, yeah, there are plenty of times when I took a picture and I thought somebody was something and it turned out something else. I almost showed a photo today that I took this morning of a guy whose name is Gene Autry, I forget his last name. If any of you are old enough to know, Gene Autry was a famous cowboy many years ago. And his mother worked for Gene Autry and named him Gene Autry. That's his actual name, Gene Autry something. I forget his last name. And this guy, if you want to say somebody who looks down and out and is reputable and homeless and drunk or whatever, and he's a responsible person. He's a manager at a farm. He just invested in one of the dollar stores and so forth. And I was going to use that to show that exact point. And I thought, well, we already know that point, so I need to bring that in. The liminality came from a totally different space. It came from this blandness, this nothingness, this openness, this lack of something going on other than just that pure humanity. So it came from a different place. And then you and we'll be done.
Whenever you began choosing your photos for the actual exhibition, what mindset did you go in with that?
You know, it's just whatever I really love the most. What can I say?
How did wisdom change you?
How did it change me? Well, I indicated several things in here. Really, I mean, it really made me much more thoughtful about the variety of people there, some of the stereotypes and expectations I might have. But I guess the biggest way it changed me is it gave me a